this is the thing that nobody asked for. The Autism Podcast. I don't know, maybe I'll figure out a better name. Or like Emma's Life Podcast. Because there's a variety of things that I want to talk about. What's on my mind right now is specific to school. So, some history. I'm giving you a list of my medical diagnosis. That's what the first bit of this video is going to be. So keep that in mind. And this is up until I was in high school. So the diagnoses I had in high school. So ADHD, autism, nonverbal learning disability, anxiety, depression, other learning disabilities, and I was starting on the chronic pain track, which I wouldn't get a diagnosis for until 4 years later after I graduated high school. So before my diagnosis, nobody really thought of me as autistic. I don't remember my process that I went through my assessment. You know, I was like 10, 9, 10, 11. I don't know. It's in my medical records. I just know I got diagnosed in 2007. I was born in 1996. Somehow they were able to diagnose me with ADHD at age 4. But like as a child, I was much different than other children. You know, I did a lot of parallel play. I lined things up. If you messed the things that I had lined up, I would become very upset. This is just a funny one, but I put my baby dolls in the fridge one day. Another funny thing is we had a nativity set, and I love nativity sets, not for any religious reasons, just because. And we had this special one, or one I really enjoyed, and I would take baby Jesus and put him on like the top of the manger and be like, baby Jesus, get down, or however, you know, babies talk. I didn't really have the same social skills as the kids my age. Now, where complications, I would say, came in, there's more stuff, but this is where I think I confused a lot of people. I was and continue to be hyperverbal. You know, people say I'm intelligent. I'm supposed to have like average to above average IQ. I've taken like an IQ test and I get below average, so I don't know what that means, but they're just online ones. I really did not do well with change. If I was supposed to be in the front of the line in daycare when we were going to the park and I wasn't, meltdown. If I was supposed to hold a specific person's hand and I didn't, meltdown. So they would often, my daycare would have, you know, the line of us, and we'd be stopped on the sidewalk while I had my meltdown. And my mom did notice that my developmental delays were there. They just weren't noticeable. So my mom said she noticed it more after my cousin was born. My cousin was born in 1999. We're 2 years and a bit different, and I was behind her. Um, but during like those testing that they do to figure out development and stuff, um, they they more so figured out that I had sensory processing disorder and not autism, which we know that accumulated into autism. And I would say that's fairly accurate. I definitely do have sensory processing disorder. Um, yeah, yeah, you're just a little sound. I have a lot of trouble with noise and a lot of trouble with light, clothing, um, just everything. I can't do it. I can barely be in public. Um, I can barely be at like small family events. Um, I'm good at one-on-one things and things that are really low key. But if there's a lot of noise and I don't have any sort of ear thing, I'm fucked. Like I can't do it. My mom used to have to take a day off in the middle of the week to do house cleaning because I could not handle and still can't handle the sound of a vacuum. Um, I have trouble with like just cleaning noises. Um, I try my best to make things as easy as possible in my house. We kind of have a little bit of a deal um, where if I make something, then my parents clean the dishes because I can't do the dishes due to the sound and the textures and the stuff. Um, and even doing cleanup after, I'm not very good at it. Um, I'm sure my ADHD does come in when it comes to doing cleaning, and it makes it more difficult for me because I just can't. I I can't focus. Um, so with my assessment, they contacted my daycare and they're like, Emma's not autistic, and I think it's just the way that the DSM 4 had put autism. And so the delays I have aren't the delays that people normally associate. And like a lot of um, girls at this time, we got diagnosed once we were in school and we were interacting with our peers. Oh, school was a fucking sensory nightmare. I I literally don't know how I made it to fucking graduate. It was awful. Um, so we've got this sensory processing disorder. We've got this undiagnosed autism. We've got ADHD that's been diagnosed. Um, and I enter kindergarten because I have a late November birthday. I started school when I was 5, and then turned 6 in November. Um, Now, my kindergarten teacher was lovely. She has an autistic son, so I don't know if she kind of figured that there was something going on with me or whatnot, but she took very good care of me. I still had meltdowns and stuff. And school's difficult because of all of your sensory stuff. Like, at least in elementary school, you're not really going places in the school. You stay in your classroom, you go out for recess. I didn't like wearing my shoes one time. I don't like wearing shoes. One time we had a fire drill and I wasn't wearing my shoes and I got in trouble for that. But I just didn't like wearing shoes. I still don't. Uh, they are feet prisons. I don't like wearing socks either. And they're all sensory things. It took me a really long time to learn how to tie my shoes. And I don't, I'm, I'm just blabbing. Sometimes my communication makes sense, other times it doesn't. So I don't remember too much of grade 1. I think it was probably um, uneventful. Definitely would have had meltdowns, but I don't remember them. Also, another thing, nobody remembers my head banging, which I definitely did until I was like 12. And when I mean head banging, I don't mean head banging. I mean I'm hitting my head against a wall or some other object. Because, like, I don't know for any other autistics, but I have realized for me, I need some form of pain to get out of my meltdown. I need to feel something because I can't feel anything other than this, excuse me, emotion. And the emotion is not good. If you've had a meltdown, like, you know it's too much. Your body is just in too much, is the best way for me to explain it to somebody who's not autistic. Um, so self-harm and self-injury is going to be a very common theme in this. When I get to grade 2, my grade 2 teacher does get a note that I may be autistic. Okay? So I was 8, 7 going on 8. The teacher, the TA, and the students all bullied me. Like, they all did. It got bad enough that I threw chairs because I was so dysregulated. I had trouble copying the board. Like, I needed help and I wasn't getting help, and I was just this thing people could pick on because I was different. And that's led to a lot of trauma that I can't fully unpack. Because being 8 years old and having a teacher bully you and treat you like trash, like, that does something. And that's definitely when my depression appeared, because that's when I started having attempts. I mean, as an 8-year-old, I didn't have good ideas of how to do it. So was never successful enough, and I just kept it all in. But I had all of the anxiety symptoms that kids tend to have. Um, I was probably born anxious, actually. I have severe generalized anxiety. Um, we try. I don't know. I don't know what I need to fix it, to help it, to, like, make me have a normal level of anxiety. It's just anxiety. Um, so in my second grade year, my parents got back together and we moved. And I think my parents were planning on letting me continue the school year out, but after my school's Christmas concert, I don't remember what happened, but I think I had a meltdown and it was pretty bad. And my parents were like, no, we can't keep our child at this school. Like, it's not good for her. So I switched schools. Um, the other school was better, um, but I needed comfort items. So again, here's where a delay is. One of my comfort items was my baby blanket, so I'd bring my baby blanket to class and get bullied for it. And I think that's fucking stupid. Like, what? And so kids were so mean. Like, kids are mean. Um, I did have a great teacher. We had a uh, class pet. We had a cockatiel. His name was Disco. The only time I think I got in trouble was one time Disco's perch fell and I wanted to fix it because I was like, he needs his perch fixed, and I couldn't focus on what I was supposed to be doing. And then he got out of the cage and was just flying around the classroom, and so the class came back. I don't know why I was in the classroom alone. I was finishing work or something, but nobody was with me. um, but whatever. Still threw chairs. Would get sent to the hall. Have my meltdown. Um, grade 3 was pretty much the same. Meltdowns, throwing chairs, go out to the hall, crawl around, act younger than my peers. Fourth grade was slightly better. My fourth grade teacher is the one who noticed the autism. She was like, something's not right with this kid. I also dealt with like chronic lateness and stuff because my sleep's always been fucked. Also, would you want to go to school if you were going to be assaulted by all this sensory information and you're trying to learn and you can't you can't be in the space and learn. And so you'd rather be in a safe space like your house versus a place you can't control anything. You can't control noise of the other students. You can't control lighting. You can't control, if you weren't interested in something, you can't control that. Um, and so life was pretty lonely for me in school. My teacher did implement a reward system for me, which works well for me. Reward systems work well. We did them when I was a child. I don't know what the average age of like potty training is, but I think I've said before I was 8 when I was like completely potty trained, like no pull-ups at night. But I think I was 5, and my mom had a reward thing. She did it for me getting to school on time, and those would work for short times. But I wasn't made for a mainstream school. And of course, with no diagnosis, no IEP, or while I was going to school, specialized education plan. Um, and so this is what I remember, and this is what's in medical notes. I saw multiple pediatricians, and they all kind of came to the same opinion that I had ADHD and that I had Asperger's syndrome. The main one that had been like a pediatrician for the longest um, put me under autism spectrum disorders and Asperger's syndrome. Um, so not like he put it as two different things. Um, and so I'm a hyperverbal, right? And I am intelligent. I don't I don't I don't know if I'm intelligent. I'm just here. I can repeat information. I take in information, I can repeat information. And sometimes it doesn't like make sense to other people. Luckily I have Sally. I'm still not supposed to lift her, but I have Sal. Hey Sal. Um, I have a deep connection with animals. Um, they make me feel a lot better. So in fifth grade is basically when I got my diagnosis, and I got to have testing to see about learning disabilities, and writing and math were what I struggled in. Um, so I was not good at writing or math. I was an excellent reader. I was reading, ages ahead of my classmates. I could understand concepts that my classmates couldn't in grade 5. Um, in grade 6, I started to see a developmental pediatrician. Oh, yeah, so we had taken my sister to university, um, and I came back to school a few days late, and I guess the teacher informed the students that something wasn't right about me. I don't think they said that I had autism, but they mentioned that I had some sort of condition. Great, great thing to do. Great thing to share a student's medical information with the whole class. And so I did have a TA with me um, in fifth grade. Uh, did not stop the bullying. I tried harder to fit in. I probably started working on masking in fifth grade. I don't think I threw any chairs in fifth grade. But remember how I said that I used to be able to just have my meltdowns in the hallways? My diagnosis got me restrained and in what I like to call the straitjacket hold. And so I had a whole grown adult, cross my arms around my body and then cross their legs over my legs. Now, I am already sensitive to pain, and I don't like being touched. So you can imagine the fight that I was having to get out of this position, and I again still have a lot of trauma around it. Um, you could you could give me a regular hug, and I will flash back to being restrained. I definitely didn't need to be restrained. Um, the restraining put risk to the TA, And I know we get TAs complaining about, their students being violent against them. And I guess some of what they do is to prevent violence from the student from themselves, to protect the student from themselves. Um, but I was always violent to myself, except when I was throwing chairs. Um, but if just given the time, I had my meltdown and I'd be done. I'd be exhausted and I'd be done. The restraining process sped that up, and I actively would try to get out of this hold, creating more pain on my body. But it was fight or flight, and I think a lot of the times when especially autistic students are violent or aggressive, they're in a sense of fight or flight. They're what are we supposed to do? You know? What are we supposed to do? We just live with getting restrained or put into seclusion rooms. Um, like what are we supposed to do? Um, but again, besides that, I did have a reward system, and I think it was like if I kept my desk clean, because I would keep like pencil shavings and crayon shavings and just sensory seeking behaviors, um, which my classmates didn't really like. They just found me messy, but I, um, I, I couldn't help it, Sam. There you go. There you go. Go back to your pillow. Um, One time I fell asleep in French class, and my French teacher made me write her an apology in French. And I have this thing where I just nod off sometimes. Like, I literally just fall asleep. Happens on buses. Amazingly, I always wake up before my stop. Um, would happen in class. But, like, one, I got publicly shamed in class for falling asleep and, like, got, like, a lecture in class. Then I had to write an apology in French. I'm sorry, but what? It was obviously an accident. I had to basically write a letter saying that, Madame so and so, I will not fall asleep in class again. Again, I think my extreme tiredness comes from all the sensory information. And like French class, especially. Like, it's one thing having things in English, but then French class, where you're learning a new language. And keep in mind, we're basic. My school, at least until grade 10, I don't know if it changed after, like they did more in grade 11 and 12. I stopped taking French in grade 10. My dad is Quebecois, so he's from Quebec. He can teach me French, and it'll be better French than New Brunswick French. He was always like pointing out that things were wrong, like it wasn't correct French. Um, and just I can't and cannot roll R's. R. I don't know. I did like the songs. The Cuckoo Head. Alouette, 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 alouette. Oh, alouette, chantez alouette, chantez plumarez. Chantez plumarez les têtes, chantez plumarez les têtes, et les têtes, alouette, alouette, oh. They're talking about plucking a bird. Why the fuck did they teach this to elementary school students? Anyway, the thing with my writing where I'm like very direct, I cannot write things that are meant to be very long. If I know the information, you're gonna get a paragraph from me. I cannot make sentences and stuff. And keep in mind, this is the late 2000s, and so we're writing with paper and pencil, like no computer, no nothing. And so when you did your good copies, you had to make sure your writing was nice and neat. And yes, I did learn cursive. I get confused with it. I don't know. I can't read cursive at all. People are like, it sucks that it's a lost skill, but like, who did cursive help? I couldn't tell the time on the clocks. I can't read analog clocks. They don't make any sense to me. I can only read digital clocks. Like right now, 4:42 in the morning. God, talking about school is just. Oh, I had a really bad bully that the school would do nothing about. So the swings were obviously a hot commodity in elementary school. I didn't want to get off this swing, and so this kid grabs the chain of the swing. I almost hit my fucking leg, and with like that much force, I literally could have broken my leg. And I go to a teacher, and like they don't care. Like they don't care at all. One time I think I jumped off of a swing, and the swing came back and hit me in the head. I told the teacher nobody checked me for a concussion. I probably got a fucking concussion from that. And then a lot of the ways that I stimmed, they weren't acceptable stimming methods. And so I'd be in after school daycare, and I'd spin, but I'd attach like a rope to something else because I wanted that pressure that comes from spinning. And then I'd get restrained because people thought I was going to hurt people. If you see me swinging, stay out of my way. I'm just stimming. Again, through chairs. I don't know what it is about me and throwing chairs, but like, if shit's going wrong, I'm gonna throw a fucking chair at you. I don't do that anymore. I did thankfully grow out of that in middle school. So in middle school, I started seeing a developmental pediatrician whose specialism was in autism, and this is why I know my autism diagnosis was not a misdiagnosis. I keep in mind I was diagnosed in 2007, so I was still under the DSM-4 book even once it became 2013. It was about 2016 when my diagnosis was actually just changed to autism spectrum disorder. It still sometimes gets referred to autism spectrum disorder, Asperger's syndrome. I obviously just use autism, but I don't have a level, so I go on my support needs when I talk about it. So I get into middle school, and I could do multiple things at once. Like I could take in information while reading a book. And that's what I would do. And then I would get in trouble. And then it was like, I don't understand. And then I would get in trouble for drawing on my paper, which was a fidget. If I would have actually been fidgeting, people would have gotten mad. And like, you can't. I was supposed to have a TA that was supposed to like help other people in the class as well. It wasn't supposed to be like a personal TA like I had in grade 5, but where was Emma's TA? I don't know. So nothing really bad happened in grade 6. I did have this person that I had clashes with. It was miscommunications and stuff, and it just wasn't a great time. Surprisingly, was not a girl. It was a guy. And like I would get aggressive. I have a theory that when puberty happens in autistics, we can get more aggressive. I don't know how true that is. I haven't really looked into it. Like I said, it's just a theory, but I feel like we become more aggressive going through puberty. And but maybe that was just me. Maybe I was just more aggressive. Um cuz I calmed down by the time I was like 14. Um Oh god, periods were awful. I'm talking about periods because they're in line with school. I had to miss a lot of school because of my periods. They were painful, sensory nightmares. Pads are terrible, but there weren't any other options. My body didn't work with tampons. TMI, but my body doesn't work with tampons. Um, I would have such fatigue. I would become aggressive. Suicidal ideation was stronger. And I would spend 3 days at home. This is on top of the other school that I missed because I was either too tired because I couldn't sleep the night before, um, or my anxiety. So sometimes I would go to school and then at lunchtime, Dad, can you pick me up? I don't feel well. And he'd be like, okay. And he'd come pick me up. And you might say that's wrong, but like, I couldn't be in a school system. There was always too much for me. Um, just always too much. Um, and getting along with people wasn't something I could do very well. 7th grade, like my memories of middle school are more not are like kind of like my memories of elementary school. They're there, but they're not completely there. Um, so again, I should have had a TA available to me. Did not. Um, I got bullied really bad, and I would just say things that were inappropriate, and I didn't realize they were inappropriate. Um, because I didn't have the social skills, and like nobody got it. Again, English and math, very difficult. I would pass my classes, but like in 7th grade in my English class, we had to write to the armed forces. But I didn't know what to write. Our teacher was like, "Well, write about Canadian things." So I wrote about Canadian stores to this soldier. I don't know if he ever got it. I hope to God he didn't or she didn't, cuz like you're expecting hope and whatever from 7th graders about how great our country is, and you just get this thing about stores. Like, what would you think? Also, my 7th grade English teacher liked to put my first and middle name, my first middle name together. So he would call me Emily. It pissed me off so much. I mean, now online I go by Emily, because I just like how it sounds. I like that it's like a first name, but also two separate names. It works as a pen name. Um, my last name starts with an M, so also when I sign like artwork, I'd sometimes just do EM, and it just looks like M. It has no relation to my last name, which I like. I don't know. I think in 7th grade I found Tumblr, which was probably the most dangerous thing I could have found, but it did allow me to create a community. But I was definitely way too young at 7th grade to be on Tumblr. Like, I was like 13, 14 on Tumblr. In grade 7, one of my classmates just called me an emo Asperger's bitch as an insult, and so I like hit them or kicked them, and I got into more trouble than they did, even though they started it, and it like made no sense to me. And like these two girls decided that they were going to target me because I would get upset easily because I didn't understand what was going on. I thought I was friends with these people, and then they were just awful to me, and I didn't get it. In 7th grade, our social studies teacher. Now, this is important into my story about school, okay? You're gonna be like, Emma, I don't see the importance of it, but in 7th grade, um, my social studies teacher did two things that really radicalized me. One was segregating us based on what we look like. So I'm pretty racially ambiguous. At the time, we thought I was Métis. My dad's family history is very confusing. Not Métis. Just thought I was at the time. Actually, Asian, so I still would have been like I wouldn't have been with the white people. And then the half black and half white girl was put in another corner, so you had all these white people in one corner, a black person in a corner, and then me, the Asian, uh, in another corner, and that was very radicalizing because I was all alone. And to think about how segregation was and then have an exercise like that, like that is whoa. I 7th grade I think is definitely too young to be teaching segregation like that. And I don't remember much more other than the exercise, but I remember the exercise. Um, the second thing that really radicalized me in that class was we had an elder from our local reserve come and tell us all about residential schools and what happened to her. Um, so my heart literally broke. This elderly lady was telling us how the nuns boxed her ears and it created deafness. Um, that's what stands out to me. And I literally can't imagine an adult doing that to a child in a school. And she shared other horrors. She shared what happened with when they were on their periods. Um, I do think some of it was probably, um, we were told not as severe things because of our age. But this woman would have gone to Shubenacadie in Nova Scotia. Um, so that was a big thing on me. And I think of it often whenever I hear people talk about residential schools and residential school denial. I literally don't know how you can fucking deny residential schools and the horrors that went on there. There are still elders and young people. You know, the last one closed in 1996, 28 years ago. And I'm not quite sure how long the Indian Day schools went on for. But it's really fucked up. And it really fucked me up. And I probably thought about it for days. I do think our parents had to sign something for that, though. On a funny note, my math teacher told us he was getting a vasectomy, and so our social studies teacher was also our health teacher, and she explained how a vasectomy happened. Why? First off, why did a teacher tell seventh graders what a vasectomy was? Second, why is the health teacher? I mean, I think we were all curious at that point. Um, but like she made it a lesson to explain it to us. And I just needed to add a little bit of humor. So, 8th grade comes, still doing Tumblr, following pro Anna blogs, following pro self harm blogs, just everything self destructive I could find, really. Um, and like band blogs. Because in middle school, I became obsessed with emo and like pop punk. And I still am. I still really love emo and pop punk music. It's my jam. Um, and like metal, because it would drown out noise, and I just wanted to drown out noise. Um, I remember in my French class when William and Kate got married, instead of having French class, we watched their wedding. To me, that was a waste of time. But anyway, here's where my stimming got in trouble. So I tap things, which, yes, I get gets annoying. But I'm trying to like focus in on something because sometimes the sensory information is so great that I can't process anything anymore. So I would tap things and people would rip it out of my hand. There was an indoor lunch because the weather was raining. And so we couldn't go outside. We had to stay in our classrooms. And I had a spoon and I was tapping it rhythmically. How they fucking heard it over their loud ass voices, I will never know. But they literally ripped the spoon out of my hand, they being my classmates. I got into a physical fight because of it. I bit someone, I punched someone. Then a teacher walked in while it was happening, and I don't remember what the outcome was, if I got suspended or not. But I had girls tell me that I needed to be on medication, that I'm not taking my meds. basically that I was crazy because they didn't fucking understand autism. And even after I had a breakdown and was in the hallway crying, talking to my teacher about how horrible these students were, these students never were held accountable. And because I had a meltdown over my stimming, I got uninvited to a birthday. I still bought the person a birthday gift and brought it to them, even though they were going along with the girls telling me I needed to be medicated. Yeah, I needed to be medicated for anxiety that y'all cause. Like, school is fucking awful. I did get times where I was able to make cookies, which I really enjoyed. I really do like baking. Um, and I would bake and I would bring it to my class. Like, I regularly did this. Even into high school and like college, I would bring baked goods into people just because I like sharing food. I don't know. It was my way of trying to connect to people. I definitely because of my autism, I let people walk all over me because I didn't understand friendships. I didn't understand how they were supposed to work. So I had Tumblr, and I was lonely. And I was pretty convinced I was going to the high school across town because I just wanted to get the fuck away from these bullies. But there still would have been bullies, at the other school. They just wouldn't have known me. And then once they knew me, they would, treat me awful. Um, so I go into grade 9. A lot of anxiety. So I missed a lot of days. I did pass all my classes but 2. I failed science and math. My math teacher was very much a hands-off teacher and made us watch videos of how to do the math. I'm sorry, but I can't learn from that. And I think with science, I just missed too much time. But I did pass them in summer school with really good grades. My science mark was a 91, and I had like a 70 in math because the teacher was a better fucking teacher than just giving me a video to watch. And so my supports that I was supposed to have were things like longer test taking time, um, access to a TA or EA. I don't know what they're called anymore. None of this information was ever really conveyed to me or my family. I didn't know about it. I had a really terrible resource teacher. Probably the only good thing he did was for my English and math exams, I had people that I could kind of ask questions, but math especially, I do need a hand-holding experience where every single step is explained to me. And that sounds ridiculous, but I need every single step explained to me. And then when it comes to English, I'm a literal person. I get to metaphors and all the other stuff, and I'm like, I don't fucking understand what this means. Anyway, as we know, failed math, but passed English, so that's all that mattered. In 9th grade, I had another student grope my chest, I was also having trouble with another student who was physically assaulting me. And when we were talking about it with my vice principal and guidance counselor, they told me if I let one person touch me, I'm giving everyone permission to touch me. And so I never reported my sexual assault. It feels weird calling it sexual assault, because I know people have had it much worse than just having their breasts groped. Um, but that was a lot, and he would do it in the school hallway. I don't know if cameras could catch it or not. Um, I wish I would have been brave enough to report it. I wasn't, so I just adjusted how I dressed, and it stopped because as long as I wasn't wearing anything cleavage bearing, he wouldn't grope me. Yeah, we're still getting through that trauma too. But like being told by adults, you let one person touch you, you're giving everyone permission to touch you. Because me and my friend would just poke each other in class. Like we were bored. I don't know. But it was a consensual thing. The physical assault and the groping were not consensual. In fact, they were things that made me highly uncomfortable. Um, but they didn't want to deal with any of my bullying. They didn't want to help me at all. One time I got to be in the quiet room, which was a room with a desk in it, and one thing I do is I get down and I get low. And it was a day that I had been up for hours. Like, I didn't sleep the night before. I think I was up for like 36 hours. I once had So people in my gym class decided to pick on me as well. I literally don't remember why. And I just wanted, like, I was breaking down. I was crying. I would consider it a meltdown. And I was crying and I wanted to be home in my safe place. And they were saying things, what if your house is burned down? Like, what if all this? Bad things. And I went to my guidance counselor and they did nothing. Um, but some of these bitches went on to go and be best buddies because autism's only acceptable if it looks a certain way. If it's somebody that doesn't appear to have terrible meltdowns, if it's somebody that I don't know, is likable. And I'm specifically talking about a specific autistic person that I know that everybody loves, and I totally get why they love them. I love them. They are the sweetest person ever. Um, he has won world records in Special Olympics. Um, he is a fantastic representation of an autistic person being able to do things. Um, he's like limited verbal, um, higher support needs than I do. But he's just a real sweetie. But that's the acceptable autism. It's not the kind that has meltdowns, the kind that isn't functioning, the kind that high masks, That's not the acceptable autism. It's the autism that fits the mold. And I think that's fucked up. I'm sorry, but if you're bullying people no matter what, whether you know they have a disability or not, and they didn't know I was autistic, okay? Um but you're perfectly fine with somebody that is like calm, mellow, no meltdowns really. Um Kind of like a star pupil autistic, if there could be. You are not for disabled people. One of these people ended up fake claiming me, saying I was self diagnosed. They didn't get why I talk about mental health and autism, and I'll get into that more. So I missed a lot of days in grade 9. I only really enjoyed art class. I love art class. That's my favorite class ever, is art class. And I really enjoyed social studies because, again, I like learning about history. Um, and that was that. Grade 10, my attendance did improve, but that's when I had my first attempt. I was growing more and more depressed. I was growing more and more anxious. My great aunt died, and um, my aunt Ella was my grandma Elsie's twin. And my grandma died like a year after I was born. So um, having her twin was kind of like having my grandma, um, because they were supposedly identical twins. And obviously in 1939, they're the same gender. You can't, they must be identical. And people did say they looked alike. But I think even sometimes fraternal twins can look alike. But that was a really hard time because I spent a lot of time at my aunt Ella's, and I like created a routine. And she was quiet. I would make her tea, and just help her out. And I would also spend time with my sister a lot because my sister was living with my aunt Ella and kind of taking care of her. Not in a full caregiver capacity, but like living with her to make sure she'd be okay and stuff. And so on weekends, I would go to their place and hang out. Um, I definitely do miss my aunt Ella. She was a beautiful woman. Yeah, I wish I would have had more time with her. So things aren't going good at school. Um, I wrote a turning points essay about my suicide attempt, and my teacher told me I did it wrong. I'm not quite sure how you can do a suicide attempt essay as a turning point wrong, but okay. Um, I read A Clockwork Orange. That was a really difficult book to get through because of all of the made up language. And we would just write little bits of what we had read about it. Um, I think I was the only one reading A Clockwork Orange. Again, Tumblr influenced me. I What was my grade 10 year? I don't know. they originally put me in the advanced art class, and then we had something called like that. I can't remember the acronym, but like it would be like a sex ed class and like career planning and all this stuff. And so if I would have actually been in the advanced art class, I would have had art and then that class. But no, I was just placed in the wrong class. I shouldn't have said anything. I should have just continued as I was and been happy in the advanced art class because there were people I vibed with. And I think we, had similar skills, but now that they moved me to the regular art class, which I kind of felt like, great, I'm not good enough. Cool. But 10th grade was when I got into watercolor. And I really got into watercolor, and that's when I started watercolor painting. So I was like 16, and I fell in love. I'm 28 now, so I've had 12 years of practice and work with watercolor. I'm not like a beginner anymore. I have favorite paints. I have favorite papers. I have brushes I love and I am particular about, and just other stuff. And, it kind of became like a special interest. And I love doing anything with painting in class. That was my main focus. And I ended up just spending lunch hours in my art class. So in grade 10, your math classes, or my high school did, things were placed into two different things. And at least one of my teachers noticed I was pretty depressed. I did pass those math classes. I still needed, more help than the average student, but I don't know if this was teachers following my IEP or just me putting my hand up in class and being like, I need help. And I pretty much just focused on my work. I did get into an argument in social studies one day, though, and it's like this fake country boy, like, whatever. Anyway, the only insult he could think of was that my hair was blue, and I was like, okay, yeah, great insult, 10 out of 10. Good noticing skills. Again, still obsessed with Tumblr. This is also when I started following sex workers, and I was learning about sex work. So what Emma started to learn about and think about and want as a possible job. So I don't remember much of grade 10, to be completely honest. It was grade 10, right? Grade 11 I remember more because I had a second attempt and it was much more serious. I swallowed a shit ton of pills. And I had charcoal. They must have sedated me at some point. I think they even had to sedate my mom. Like it was a thing. I got into a fight with somebody and I like blacked out and hit them, and I felt so fucking guilty afterwards. And honestly, that made me suicidal. Now here's where things also got, so I was already dealing with poor mental health, right? I was in advanced history. It was about war. I don't fucking care about war. But here's where I also learned about socialism and Hi if you're new and you didn't come from my TikTok. I'm all about socialism. I think that's the future. I wish like Canada was more of a socialist country. Um, if socialism and communism are done right, they're actually pretty good systems, but they haven't been done right. So we all just think of everything bad. And even when I was like trying to explain, like, oh yeah, socialism makes so much sense, people in my class were like, no, no, no socialism, no. And I'm like, socialism, yay. It made sense to me. Um, then we had to read something on the Western Front. My brain would not let me read that book. My brain literally would not let me read that book. I was having so much trouble. I had no way of like going to my teacher and being like, "Hey, I cannot read this book." Um and remember, I read a Clockwork Orange in grade 10. So all's quiet on the Western Front. Much different than a Clockwork Orange. Like, this was plain English. And I probably should have had like my resource teacher interfere there and be like, hey, we got to figure out an accommodation for Emma here because she can't do it. Anyway, I ended up failing level 1 history, so they gave me a level 3 history mark, which I wish they just would have let me take another history course, because the level 3 mark is for the people that weren't going to go to post-secondary. I don't know. It felt like an insult to my intelligence, because I am relatively smart, I swear. My grade 11 English teacher told us I was taken off of the IEP. Yeah, they took me off of my IEP without telling my family. And my mom, I don't know why my mom was at the school after school, but she was talking to my teachers. And, my teachers could see that I was having a hard time. And just things weren't good with me. It's actually amazing. I graduated high school. So I think I got put back on my IEP. I did musical theater in high school, and I felt like my biology class, like I just felt like I couldn't do my biology class in my um, the theater thing, and I was doing it because my cousin was in it, and I had some friends, and it was okay. It also just took its toll on me. I'd have to miss practices because of pain and anxiety and just not great. So in high school, my chronic pain started, and it started to be something that affected me greatly. In grade 11, though, I took all of the art classes I could. My favorite art class was my native arts class. Now, I would never do any of the things that we learned. You could take a class if you weren't Indigenous. And, to my knowledge, not Indigenous. But Indigenous studies, culture, I don't know what, is a special interest of mine. And so I was so happy to take Native Arts. And this is where I learned so much fucking respect for beaters. Y'all, y'all are the champions. You are the champions of the world. We did beaded dream catchers, like small ones. So that was really difficult. And we did big ones that were a little bit more simple. We made Christmas ornaments. And we made little baby moccasins. And my cousin just had a baby. And so I was like, I'm going to make these for the baby. And then I just never gave them to her. She is now a grown adult. Not an adult, she's like 13. So obviously they will not fit her. But I made moccasins for her. What else did we do? We did loom beading. That was really difficult. All the beading stuff was really difficult. We did do a little research project. And again, so until I found TikTok, I literally thought Métis was French from Quebec and an indigenous person mixture. And even in books that I was reading was telling me that. Boy, was I surprised when I learned that was not the truth. Atlantic Canada, we're behind. We need to, if you didn't know, Métis are from the Red River settlement, or that's like the main one. And it is not just an indigenous person and a French person mixed. It's not. So, and it's not a thing in Atlantic Canada. So unless your family is originally from out on the prairies, and you say you're Métis, you're probably not Métis. You're probably just indigenous and French. So, fun fact. I took like a graphic design class, which was really fun. Grade 11 and 12, I was like obsessed with serial killers. So I did like a speech on serial killers, and we did like a debate on like nature versus nurture. And because I was obsessed with serial killers, I had read a lot about nature versus nurture when it comes to serial killers. So when we did that debate, I don't remember what side I was on. That I had lots of information that like proved my point. And for serial killers, fun fact, it is probably a mixture of both nature versus nurture, because a lot of serial killers have had really bad head injuries or severe abuse in their childhood. Some people were fine and they still became a serial killer, but other people, they had a lot of trauma, and that turned them into a serial killer. And I did a speech on serial killers, and then I don't think I did well on it, so I asked to redo it, and I redid it in a different room without my classmates, and I talked about my struggle with self-harm and everything, and I got a better mark. So that was good. In grade 11, I literally left school and would walk home. One time, my homeroom teacher literally saw me just getting ready to leave. She didn't try to stop me. I think she knew I was going home. And could tell on my face that I wasn't doing well. And so I walked home. That was not a short walk, by the way. How many kilometers is it? Let's see. How many kilometers? Okay. How do I do this? Okay, search maps. So 5.5 kilometers. I walked 5.5 kilometers twice to get to my house. And then my parents just called and said, hey, we forgot to say we picked her up. Um, but like that was my life. That was my anxiety. That was everything, you know? I couldn't function being at a school. Um, I just couldn't function being at a school. There was too much everything. Um, in my grade 11 year, I did do much better in um, English. My teacher was great. We all loved him. He he is a fantastic man. Um, and he really cared for his students. And for that, I am eternally grateful. In grade 11, instead of taking biology because of the whole fucked upness, I took a dance class. I'm not very good at movement. Not at all. But it was something to do. And whatever. I took a dance class. Um, grade 12, I seriously thought I was going to drop out. The day I turned 18, I was literally going to go to my guidance counselor and be like, hey, I'm dropping out. Give me the papers. Because while you can drop out before you're 18, you legally cannot actually drop out until you're 18. That's how bad school was for me. But I did have some good things. I was able to do a dual credit program, so I got 2 credits for college and 2 credits for high school. And that was really great. It was really interesting being with like adults when you're surrounded by high schoolers and high school teachers. I also got a better resource teacher that year, and he was like, okay, what can we do to make your life easier? And we decided no exams at all. My English teacher was so mad that I wasn't going to do her English exam. Well, what are you going to do? It's part of my IEP. You got to follow it. That's the legal document. Yeah, it wasn't until grade 12 that things started happening with my IEP and I actually got supports in school. Both in grade 11 and grade 12, I had the same math teacher, and he handheld me all through math. I know some people don't like it when I use the term handhold, but he would go over every single step until I understood it. And so I was having higher marks in math because I had somebody helping me fully understand it. Um, Keep in mind, I still missed a ton of school because my anxiety just wouldn't let me be in the environment. I wouldn't be able to sleep. I would be in a lot of pain. I couldn't do school. I literally couldn't do school. Um, did theater again the next year. Was able to complete biology. I did grade 11 biology and grade 12. Um, I was a kid who had to go out in the hall and have put their feet up because they couldn't do dissections. And I chose a good dissection buddy, and they were great. But I got weak when we were doing our fish dissection, so I had to go out to the hall and put my feet up. So that was fun. Um, I definitely like doing like the scientific drawings, and I'd like to do more. I just don't know how, other than looking up images online. I'm also really interested in medical illustration. I want to do more of it, but it's kind of weird when you do it with watercolor. I don't know. But my main point is school, not necessarily the best place for an autistic person. Oh, also, I took culinary tech in grade 11 and 12. And because even though I've got my noise issues and my issues with food, I would literally clean the living fuck out of all of our dishes we used. I didn't like it when anyone else touched the dishes. I was cleaning the dishes and they were going to be clean. They were going to be so clean. With my dual credit, I literally had a period of time where I just didn't have class because I only had classes on Friday. And so I would stay through lunch and then continue cleaning all of the dishes into the next class. Because obviously I had to eat my own lunch, right? I also worked in my school cafeteria. Um, that was okay. I don't know. That was okay. It was something to do. It paid for my like lunch. One way that I tried to make friends and keep friends was bribe them with things and food, and like if they needed money, I would give them money because I just wanted that connection so bad, and I had no idea how to make that connection. And also keep in mind, in grade 11 and grade 12, I was still thinking about doing sex work. I was thinking about becoming like a cam girl because that was like really popular online. Um, I don't have the personality to be a sex worker, especially an online one. I would get one unwanted dick pic, and I, like, even if it was my job, and I would be like, I hate this. Also, doesn't help that I'm asexual, so how would I do anything sexual on camera? I didn't think that one through. But like the sex workers on Tumblr kind of made it seem like glamorous and like this super fun job. Um, and as a disabled person, my job prospects are much smaller than somebody without a disability. And so sex work is still on my mind as a job, but I'm not personable. I'm really not. I'm really boring. I would have so much trouble to connect with somebody. Um, I wouldn't be able to make sexual content. I mean, I could show you my tits. Like that's probably it. And you probably wouldn't want to see that because I have a picking problem, a skin picking problem. And my chest has gotten a lot of that, has been the target of a lot of picking. So, you know. Anyway, one of the things I was promised. So, I did prom, I did my grad dinner, I did everything. My grad dinner, I literally left after we ate, even though they were doing like a photo show, whatever. I didn't go to casino night. I didn't go to like any of the events. Um, I went to prom, and I took my friend from my autistic group, and I think he probably managed better than I could. Um, but we literally left around 10. Um, the music, the lights, the everything was so much. Wearing my dress was a lot. Um, it was not a fun time for me. And so we left at like 10 p.m. And Dennis, our school cop, we love Dennis. Dennis, best school cop. Like, he actually cared for the students. Um, and yes, Canadian schools have cops. We don't have metal detectors. Some might, but we have cops. Usually they're just there for 2 years, but Dennis was there for 4. Um, and he was warning me about going to the pit party that was happening after prom. Listen, I was having trouble at prom. You're not gonna catch me in a pit party, and if you don't know what a pit party is, it's a party in a dirt pit. I don't see the appeal. So me and my date went back to his house. We changed into comfy clothes, and then we met with our friends up at Boston Pizza and had Boston Pizza. That's how we spent my prom. And so then I was his date to his prom. And he went to a different school. He went to the French school. And, it was okay. It was a little awkward. I couldn't really engage in conversation. Food was okay. They had like a buffet. It was kind of fancier food. Um, and then they did weird synchronized French dancing. And I was like, I need to leave. I feel so bad for my friend because I made him leave my prom and I made him leave his prom. And I don't know if he had the same sensory issues that I was having with proms. But I was not having a good time, okay? Not a good time. And so, we got picked up, and I don't remember what we did after that. He definitely could have stayed at his prom, but maybe he wanted to leave too. I just, anxiety, sensory issues, just everything was awful for me to go to things like prom. And, that's like what high school is all about. You get to your graduation, you go to prom, you have fun, you go to the after party, you get blackout drunk, so then the next day when you're at your grad rehearsal, you're hungover as fuck. No, I was perfectly fine. You're gonna be like, Emma, none of this relates really to autism. But it does. It's the social isolation I had. Um, I couldn't enjoy things. They made me anxious, sensory issues, like everything. And for my graduation, my resource teacher said after I got my diploma, I could leave the gymnasium. But no, that didn't happen. Dennis, when I went up, Dennis thought I was gonna fall and he was gonna have to carry me and like pick me up because of how anxious I was. I literally was crying from the anxiety. My chest was like, I felt like I couldn't breathe. I was lightheaded. I got my diploma. The pictures that my family got of me holding my diploma, I am crying. And then I tried to leave, and they're like, "No, you can't leave." And it's like, I have this accommodation. Please let me leave. I'm literally going to fucking die. I'm having a panic attack. Let me out. And I had to stay till the end. And my last name begins with an M. So that's still a long way to go. I do think I had my iPod, and so I do think I listened to music because it was just loud. And it wasn't an environment for me. The only reason I did prom and graduation is because my brother came from Alberta to see me graduate. That's literally the only reason. And he was only in town for like the 3 days. And if my brother didn't come, I wouldn't have gone to prom. I wouldn't have gone to graduation. I would have just gotten my diploma sent to me in the mail. And I probably would have been much happier. Which, if for some reason my brother sees this, I just wanted you to be proud of me that I made it through high school. I know you don't know the whole whatever with my mental health and how it was in high school and everything. You don't know how many days I had to miss because my anxiety or my depression were so bad. I was on different medications and just not in a good place. I really appreciate that you did come for my graduation. Um, it's hard to see you every couple years, and um, I think I was at your graduation as a baby, and so you were at my graduation as an adult. So that's a good thing. Um, but yeah, a lot of my schooling was supposed to have supports, kind of have supports, nothing, supports. Nobody gave a fuck about my autism diagnosis. It was, what was the point of it besides giving me trauma? um and just the constant wanting of being like everybody else, because I wasn't like everybody else because I had fucking autism. Anyway, graduated in 2015. My developmental pediatrician basically says it was a miracle that I graduated. I don't think she thought I was going to be able to. Yeah. Next video, I'll talk about university and college and accommodations that way, and diagnoses and all that fun stuff. Weirdly enough, university and college more accommodating in comparison to, you know, kindergarten to grade 12. Yeah, I didn't have a good time at school. Anyway, this is like 2 hours. I'm so sorry. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast and my vocal fry, please subscribe. I am going to try to do more art videos. Lately, I've been in a lot of pain, so I haven't been able to be over by my desk and working. I do live stream on TikTok my painting process, which is emily.png. I'll have links in the bio probably. If it takes me a couple days, I'm sorry. Anyway, I hope you have a lovely day, a lovely night. It's 5:51. If you want to see 5:51. Oh. 5:51. There's Sal. Yeah, school has an autistic. Even with the diagnosis, you'd think a diagnosis would make things so much easier, especially when they learn that you have disabilities. Also, while I was in high school at 16, I was diagnosed with a non-verbal learning disability, which explains my trouble with math and English. I still can't get over my English teacher being like, well, how am I supposed to mark you without you doing my exam? Like, how can I assess you? I don't know. You're the fucking teacher. You just take what I've given you for work. Also, remember when I said Tumblr really influenced me? Me and my friend did a thing on the book Lolita, and we like tried to make a Sims machinima with it. And one day we were just in the theater arts room in the dark reading Lolita. That book is fucked. I've seen like I know there's movies, but there's no way I'm ever watching Lolita. The book's well written, but the book is fucked up. And like another really cringy thing I did is when it was another English class thing, and we had to do a presentation on something, and so I did a thing on serial killers because special interest. I was just like, and these are some of my bays, because I was trying to be funny and nobody found it funny. And I didn't understand why. I understand why now. Calling serial killers your bays is a little weird. But I did a thing on it, and so did my friends. So I don't know. Oh, in grade 11, I made a Carrie movie, so that was fun. Although one of our people didn't do any work, and I just threw them under the bus when we presented. I was like, yeah, blank did nothing. I don't even think they read the book. Don't give them a mark. Because we put so much effort into our Carrie video. We read the book Carrie. We watched the movie. And I think I, at home, watched the one with Chloe Grace Moretz. You know who I'm talking about. I was obsessed. And then we did a film. And then we got in trouble because so one of the people in our group is a trans woman. And we didn't think anything of it, having her go into the girls' locker room where we filmed the tampon scene where they're, throwing the tampons. We thought nothing of it because, she was a girl to us. She's a girl. She identifies as female. And we got in trouble for that, which I think was ridiculous. It wasn't real trouble, but it was make sure there's nobody changing when you bring a boy in the dressing room. And it was kind of transphobic, and I was like, that's a girl. That's why she with us. Like, anyway, it was a thing. So that was my school experience, um, according to my memories. So some things may be off, some things maybe not. I'm sorry for tangents. ADHD. But then, like, the psychiatrist that would evaluate me would be like, ADHD is improving, maybe does not need diagnosis of ADHD. I'm still confused how they diagnosed a 4-year-old with ADHD, and then we're like, let's give her Ritalin. The Ritalin, like, made neck veins stand out. Why are we giving 4-year-olds meth? I don't understand. Anyway, I should sleep. That's the thing I should do. Anyway, this was podcast 1. I'm just gonna call it Emma's Autistic Podcast. And if y'all like it, maybe we'll do more. They're just, I guess, brain dumps about life and kind of what it's like to be autistic in the world when you can't have the supports you need. And when you do have them, and like the benefits of doing other stuff, I'm going to talk about health. I do have chronic illness and chronic pain, which we'll get to in the next video, I think, because it'll go with how my university and college experience was. So